Okay, so we do prostration. Sorry. Namo Manju Shri Ye, Namo Su Shri Ye, Namo Dhamma Shri Ye Su Ha, Namo Manju Shri Ye, Namo Su Shri Ye, Namo Dhamma Shri Ye Su Ha, Namo Manju Shri Su Shri Ye, Namo Dhamma Shri Ye Su Ha. 月当作给穷囊来，将就满头大地个苏切，大给去年给别从那给，着拉面接上给主巴哟。月当作给穷囊来，将就满头大地个苏切，大给去年给别从那给，着拉面接上给主巴哟。月当作给穷囊来，将就满头大地个苏切，大给去年给别从那给，着拉面接上给主巴哟。 对给主见没主张，只让灵性你的根本地，上给心多没得我也，就跟那当心了去把修，一当不如让那没达拉干的呀大呀米。
Lama, you know, should be should not do the channel. What in the city to the town, dog same day, man, cutting to the father, Mamma, but you Mashi by the Tonjim Germans. The Jiji Mandana, the one that Jalando Korochi, doing by he, no one, the eager Fiji Germans, the Jiji Mandana, the G. Christian over the dinner children. Then but you, then but I shall to the Shin and Lama like she was so shall.
So please sit in 7 meditative postures of Parichana and think, all sentient beings have been my mother, and they have been my mothers for numberless times. They are as kind as my mother in this life. All kind mother sentient beings, though they want happiness and do not want even a small suffering. However, due to engaging wrongly with the objects of abandonment and adoption, they experience only suffering. We generate loving kindness towards all kind mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mother sentient beings had excellent happiness. May all kind mother sentient beings have excellent happiness. I will cause all kind mother sentient beings to have excellent happiness. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
The ages of the what night since you did a time to legion and send you she never was legion until you choke Tata and Jawa Chichi Jawa Dagi Shawa did a shiny Lama and she was so
Next, we generate compassion toward all suffering mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if the body of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as pain, sickness, and harm caused by the 4 elements. May the body of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the body of all suffering mother sentient beings from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
The ages of the what name magazine in dinner to each in Chicago, Nando Tara near Tara Jawa Chichi Jawa Dagi Shawa did a shiny Lama and she
Next, we think, how nice it would be if the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as fear, anxiety, coarse and subtle conceptual thoughts. May the mind of all suffering mothers and sentient beings be free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the minds of all suffering mothers and sentient beings from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the speech of all suffering mothers and sentient beings were free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. Coarse and subtle negative speech such as lying and saying harsh words. May the speech of all suffering mothers and sentient beings be free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the speech of all suffering mothers and sentient beings from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. In brief, how nice it would be if the three doors of all suffering mothers and sentient beings were free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. May the three doors of all suffering mothers and sentient beings be free from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the three doors of all suffering mothers and sentient beings from the class that is discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if all mother sentient beings were free from suffering and its cause. May all mother sentient beings be free from suffering and its cause. I will free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings and its cause. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. Next, we generate bodhicitta, first by asking ourselves, who should take on the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms? I should take on the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and lower realms. However, I do not have the ability to do so. Who has the ability? Only those who have achieved the perfect, complete enlightenment have the abilities to do so. Therefore, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve enlightenment. Next, we generate all-encompassing yoga mind. the conventional aspiring bodhicitta that thinks, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve enlightenment. These transform into a complete mundis at one's heart. The ultimate bodhicitta, that is one's mind becoming one taste with emptiness, the lack of inherent existence. These transform into a white five-pronged Vajra on top of the mundis. Next, we meditate on emptiness, that I exists neither intrinsically one with, nor intrinsically different from the aggregates. Thus, I do not exist intrinsically. And as I always mention, it is important to conjoin our virtue with the practice of 6 perfections. And the first one is generosity, and generosity is mainly the mind of giving. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, whatever roots of virtue that I accumulate through my 3 doors, I give it to all sentient beings for their sufferings to be eliminated and for their happiness to be accomplished. The second one is morality. Morality is mainly a mind of abandoning. What does it abandon? It abandons physical and verbal negativities. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, I will properly abandon my physical and verbal negativities so that they do not manifest. The third is patience. Patience is an undisturbed mind. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, whatever physical or mental hardships occurs, I will embrace it. I will willingly accept it. And this is a kind of patience that is called patience of embracing hardships or sufferings. The fourth is joyous effort. Joyous effort is a mind that takes delight in virtue. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, I will take delight in accomplishing virtue and working for the welfare of sentient beings. the fifth is meditative concentration. It is a mind that single-pointedly abides on any of the virtuous objects. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, I will single-pointedly focus my mind on the virtuous object and not get controlled by distractions and coarse and subtle conceptual thoughts.
다 도와 싫어지 보시면 안에서 와서 싫어서 가서 취업 넘지지 로스는 거예요. 이 성상 당가서 내상고서 제바들라베 피언랍 침보여 봐 시바. 다 된디베 간다 내상고서 마지 바이나 대 간다 소소 님이다 디서여 봐 신바지. 디시베도네 대 간다 가서 주시게 봐 치다 되어서 발레바라 시도 봐 중바이나 싫어지 보시면 안에서 그래서 중바이나.
The last one is wisdom. Wisdom is an awareness that thoroughly distinguishes phenomena. So during these 2 hours of listening, contemplating, and meditating on Dharma, I will properly understand the inconceivable benefits of doing so and the faults of not doing so, words and meaning of the teachings, and also understand the objects of abandonment and objects of adoptions.
해선제 통지되는 선지지 공부도 대지도 다 전혀 나지를 주시는 양의 수교도 기능 생기는 변화도 사건을 하고 주시죠.
Set a good motivation. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve enlightenment. For these, I will properly listen to the commentary on the holy teaching, Lamrim, and practice accordingly in order to benefit sentient beings.
Oh yeah, thank you. 그 드린 가서 매 쉬어데 수너는 뭐 지시는 돌래세. 단도 그치도 마 인가라서 타지 차 판치지 상이. 디커도 뭐 쉬어니와. example.
Yeah, so to continue where we stopped in last class, the questions of Ratnajuda Sutra teaches that it is necessary to meditate on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects, complete in all the methods, factors of generosity, and the rest.
그래서 다시니 시빙 탈을 뭐 가다 흰 탈을 뭐 바데 가야기 lum다도 좀마 드미고는 뭐 두야 농고는 다 능지 수송 요래 니 마 된다도 시야 간다 와 이거도.
And regarding the words quoted from the questions of Ratnajuda Sutra, the general meaning of these quotations is with method and wisdom stops falling into the two extremes. Method and wisdom, the union of method and wisdom stops the falling into the two extremes. So what are these two extremes? The extremes of samsara and the extremes of nirvana. So with this method and wisdom, they stopped one from falling into these two extremes.
다시니의 야마다 그 타니 가스도 지마 같이 주시도 싶다래. 간다 셔럽지 배 냐리지 야부지 여바이나 다 시빙 탈에 후한테 박도 그래 신탈 후한테 박가도 그래 해서 대도도 해서 와 시발을 좋아. 다 탈지 차라파 예 심비토니 야부 일라바이나 신 탈에 후한테 대도도 그래 해서 다 되네 야 다스나 야 마다 이토네 들이 냐리 제바이나 다 신탈에 신다니가래 후한테 박가니 그 상지 주고가 돼야게 돼 간다 최송금 말해서 간다 와.
So I mentioned in previous class, and then to serve as a reminder. So last week I talked about wisdom. The practice of wisdom stops one from falling into the extremes of samsara, and if this is conjoined with the method aspect or the method factor, then it stops one from falling into the extremes of nirvana or nirvana peace. So if we practice this method and wisdom together, or we practice the indivisibility of method and wisdom, then one will not fall into the extreme of this. One will not fall into these two extremes, the extremes of samsara and the extremes of nirvana. So undoubtedly, one will achieve the state of liberations and so on.
제투바 제고래서 단모에 니스부터 드리면서 네 카드 가스 거바데 링게다 리고야 또 거바데 나도 나지베 진짜가 주세님이 진가라베 간다 파시도 그냥이 심바지 제고래서 가디나면서 쇼요와 다 드링왜 니스 거바데 다디 카드 리고야 와
Yeah, as I always mention at the beginning of the class, it's very important to conjoin our virtues, such as attending Dharma teachings, then with the practice of 6 perfections. And we have to do that, and we must make ourselves able to do that. And it is necessary to do so as well. So why? Because it is related to these particular quotations from the questions of Ranachuda Sutra.
당어도 카드 들에 주나는 지식은 돌을 강시래 짐발어서 타지 차 탄지 차이 넘바 탄지 초다되면 돈이 공부를 해서 어떤 넘바 나기 초딩지 돈이 공부를 해서 다 들에 아는 나기 초딩지 돈이 공부하되 이제서 80쪽이 년에다 맞아가지고 공부를 해서 다 들에 연나 도도들이 아버지.
So the meaning of this quotation is quoted from the questions of Ranachuda Sutra, saying that it is necessary to meditate on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects, complete in all the method factors of generosity and the rest. So the meaning of these quotations is one have to meditate on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects. Or the meaning of this is one is necessary to meditate on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects is one needs to practice 6 perfections.
Oh, dirda. Da ganda nganzo toni jibo jibo. Ye tashi la sa jiso bashi la sa ba chenda go masim ba jimba ina. Da nangki chode ji toni go ma ko chibu mare. Toni jibo go imba ina. De nganzo de ganda nangki chode ji toni go se di ko chibu mare.
And if we only meditate on emptiness, which is not conjoined with the rest of the perfections, that meditations on emptiness itself is not called meditations on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects.
밀림보 따위 희시 코난 러바시 러바는 지히샤 희신지바 다 밀림보 속에 희신을 러바이나 희신을 러바 대신에 다 하마 예수 파시 옛날에나 가르쳐 놓고 그랬다 희시 집어넣는 지그래세 어다 밀림보 가시게 두서 러브에서 왔다 간다로와 다 현달 러바다 파 가바지자 버려 순진바 세와 로와 현달 러바다 파 까니 다 희신 집어넣는 지금 누세. So not only the quotation is quoted from the questions of Ranachuda Sutra, and then there are also quotations, scriptural passages quoted from Gathering All the Threads Sutra, and also from the Sublime Continuum as well. So from the Gathering All the Threads Sutra says, foolish people seek to repudiate the Bodhisattva's practice of the 6 perfections for the sake of enlightenment, saying, you should train in the perfections of wisdom alone. What is the use of training in anything else or training in the rest? So those who say it is okay just to practice the perfections of wisdom only, and there is no need to train in the rest of the perfections, such as the perfection of generosity. So the way they say they negate the need to practice the rest of the perfections, or they repudiate the need to practice
the rest of the perfections. So those who say in this manner are those foolish people.
chanju simba na jepena arwa dobe sanji ji gongha toba tela jesu phashi tudo du gubati lo gubade de gubala ta milimbo khashigi kanda roa milimbo khashigi ta kana toni to bishara jibola kanda sanji ji gongha de todo gores ta phashi tubo lama phashi tubo de la lo marese milimbo khashigi dus ta toba ki bor kanda roa toba ki ya 대 돈반이 기고 또 받아지 너비 산지지 공부에 터놓고 그래서 밀림보 네 가시야 또 받아서 나오겠다 가다로와.
Yeah, so in fact, for a bodhisattva to achieve the state of enlightenment or the complete enlightenment, bodhisattva needs to train in 6 perfections. And those foolish people, they have such doubt, or they assert in this way, or they have such doubt, saying that by training in the perfection of wisdom alone, one can achieve the state of enlightenment. And those who say such thing are those foolish people.
돈이 공부돼 돈이 또 받대 템보 메비 그쪽이 빼는다 파신 제달라 로로 버리에세 이게 레버 한다로와 그래서 지구야 말로 넘도 로바로와 뭐 되게 리에게 다 도발한 거 한다로와 나도 지금 말했을 거라 바꿔 제가.
So such doubts regarding one can achieve the state of enlightenment by practicing or by training in the perfection of wisdom alone. So this is the first doubt, or the first wrong conceptions. And the second conceptions is they think that the rest of the perfections, such as the perfection of generosity, are meant for those practitioners who do not have the stable realizations of emptiness.
다때 조금 말해 답을 발려고도 대 간다 돈이 공부 돈이 지고 예수 파신을 하마를 넘어게 봐 지고 공부도 지금 말해서 와 사당보 제시 상주심 반나지 간다 와 제법도 뭐또 이해라 왕도비 사당보 상주심 반이나 그 간다 신비 ஞான에 또 ஞான 랭고였대 이나 파식 조가 그냥 내 지고요 예 제고요 말해서 저기요 말이지. 다시 소어디사 당부할 때 가서 지도 빠진 안에 저 제스라고 그러지. 또 용다 참와. 제거를 이나 다시 현달라 냐니 뭐제 바르스나 말에 제구의 규제가서 너도 상지지 공부를 통해 알았어. 대 토발라 다시 두 냐니 지시바지 제거를 대 맞이나 또 두고 말해서 동보사 동보 되시와.
Yeah, so they think that training in the conduct of generosity and so forth is necessary if one doesn't have a stable realizations of emptiness. But if one has that, if one has a stable realization of emptiness, then one doesn't need to train in the conduct of generosity. So by itself, by training in the perfection of wisdom itself, it is sufficient. So however, this is not correct, and because it is not sufficient. It is not sufficient for achieving the state of enlightenment. Then, like for those, if this were so, conduct would not be necessary for the victor's children, so bodhisattva, who have attained the first ground and so forth. So those bodhisattvas who have achieved the first ground, when they are on the first ground, their main practice is to practice generosity. So when I say, when he says that their main practice is generosity, it doesn't exclude the rest of the perfections. So it means, what it means is when you make generosity your main practice, you also practice the rest. You do not discard the rest. So why is it the rest of the perfections the practice of the perfections are needed? Because one needs to achieve the state of enlightenment.
That means like what shepherd the motu be shall want to be such as jevas. That shall say such jeva the motu be shall want to see. That the current words now. Not to shall say such jeva de motu be shall want such jeva the Mayoas level Nazi, such jeva you are never. Mayoas. Najisa, Rimbagina, Satambora, Nimba Tuman was a continent and the Podan was such jeva Mayoa. That the Mayoa de 没有一些就往看的图个是呢，电子机车嘛的，电子机车嘛个有啊切图个嘛的是我电子机有啊切个图个嘛的是，别做喇叭的有啊切图个嘛的是，别做喇叭的里，别做喇叭，别把做喇叭的看到，啥结巴了看到，等你往的心里呢，当然就学了嘛，从的心里头是吧？我等你个啥结巴看到有啊切图个嘛的是。是吧？等你有啊节目都给就是干什呢？啥节目的牛目棒吧的是，牛目棒的没多比些套的的是，牛目棒的没多比些，是吧？牛目棒的没多比些套吧送张，他看到称自己连自己车嘛的，别做了，毕竟这些等你个啥节目了，有啊节头嘛，刚过节头嘛的是，他都看到我的我那是吧？有头嘛的是，等没多比就是干什呢？等年纪棒的一些套的是看他，我的我都别些了往套是，年纪棒的一些套的是啥结巴的，我你的手上，他当我啥结巴都起了哇，他套的的呢，但都发现他妈出了，原来就是那结个来是了，我他看他啥结巴的是套的，但都
knows especially or in particular for the bodhisattvas on the eighth ground who have achieved power over non-conceptual wisdom. So eighth ground bodhisattvas, they have achieved the power over non-conceptual wisdom, meaning they have already abandoned, they have achieved the non-conceptual wisdom by abandoning afflictions or by abandoning afflictive obscurations. So that is what it means by those bodhisattvas on the eighth ground who have achieved power over non-conceptual wisdom. So they have achieved such wisdom by abandoning afflictive obscurations or by abandoning afflictions. So when they are on the eighth ground, and that eighth ground is called unshakable. So each ground has its name, has their own name. Then, like for example, the second ground is called stainless, etc. On the eighth ground itself is called unshakable. So why is it called unshakable? Because those bodhisattvas are unshakable. Cannot be shaken by the signs of the true existence. So those bodhisattvas on the eighth ground, they remain unshakable by those. They are unshaken. So they cannot be shaken by the signs of true existence. So because of this reason, then they are called unshakable.
我等的是在讲的，但是结巴人那边年目等的棒吧，等的都一些比拖的的呢，但都啥结巴的我就拍心就拿了，没啷这些拍心做，让你觉得没啷这些拍心哇，没啷这些拍心，人的那样拍心他们我个看到让你结果是能结果要来是。
没啷几拍心了，
我们拍心了，我啥结巴是吧？啥结巴的，看到结果是那拍心选的，他们我个看到让你结果要来是，让你这个嘛来是，是吧？我这个嘛来是，他讲的必须得要接了嘛去。
Even those bodhisattvas on the eighth ground have already achieved the non-conceptual wisdom, they still need to practice the rest of the perfection. So it doesn't, even though they have achieved the non-conceptual wisdom already, but it doesn't mean that they don't need to practice the rest of the perfections. So perfection sometimes, in general, there are 6 perfections, right? And there is another matter of classification is called 10 perfections. So each ground has its main perfections to practice. So when they are on the 8th ground, they still their main practice is to practice the perfections of prayer. So even though they mainly practice the perfections of prayer, they still need to practice the rest of the 9 perfections.
他讲到谈到多些呢，我说这个是写做能给确定的东西是谈到这些个是，你写的就是做他不个情况，能给确定的东西讲不啦，但这里就不来噻，他能给确定的东西讲是话的，我说东西讲不的，他讲到已经把他骂着啊，出trình的骂着啊，学霸的骂着啊，专注的骂着啊，上进的骂着啊，写了的骂着个错呢，这讲到 돈이 공부이나 어디 딘디 지수 타지 차다 말아 있던데 돈이 공부이나 어느 초대지 돈 공부해 해서
Yeah. So yeah. So the main thing that we are talking. So the main thing that we are talking here is one needs to meditate on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects. So the meaning of this meditating on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects is one needs to meditate on emptiness, that is conjoined with generosity, conjoined with morality, conjoined with patience, conjoined with joyous effort, conjoined with meditative concentration, and conjoined it with wisdom. So one needs to meditate on emptiness, conjoining with the rest of the perfections. So if one meditates on emptiness in this manner, then that meditation is called meditations on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects.
배드 간디시 교수는 가서 자부지 배나 자부되게 수대 배서 뭐 자부 수대 간다 뭐지 주고나로 자부 프로그램 자부지 그러와 자부지 배샤바이나 배 자부 수지니 뭐라고 지나와 자부 수지니 뭐라고 지나 자부 수지니 뭐배 가서 수보드 배 창상을 지주고 뭐지 주고나 뭐그 가시게 뭐야고 지셔바지야 라바 좀 하셔바지 동바 셔레야고 드시바질이야 강바트마히 다 창나레레니 야고 드신게 된디 루모케 다 조딘 같이 여와 이나와 사마레레니 뼈고 드신 찌기 창사 쯤마히 바지 와 오 된디지 루모케 창상하지 야고 드신레레 창바지 에 된디지 여바지로와 그 저보기 수대 지지바 이나 다 자보기 수대 다 고트시니 인고야 고트바 라파트시니 라바야 고트바 다 창선 좀바이나 다 자보 수지니 뭐 응을 전에 수대 따다 고 찌빠찌짱 자보들 가바지 주투리에서 뭐 베디로와 자보들
기호 수진고 김민대 제바지
다 자보 가르치 러전 이거
맞아
맞아
야, 이 가사한테 가서 미게 다게 빠라데로. 이게 스님이 생깁니다.
야야.
맞아. Yeah. So
가다 지한다고지 지금 미스테이션 지금 간다.
Yeah. So regarding these meditations on emptiness, in particular meditations on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects, to give you an example, to give you an example to illustrate this point is if we want to paint a king, for example, I forgot the name of the name of the father Sujeningbo, yeah, the King Sujeningbo. So it's the name of the father of King the Ajatasattu. So the father of Ajatasattu, I forgot his name already. In Tibetan, it's called King Sujeningbo. So if one wants to paint, if one wants to paint a picture of King Sujeningbo, then there are many painters, and none of them can paint king. The king, can draw a full painting. Yeah, none of them can draw a full painting of the king. So each painters, they are only good at drawing the parts of the body. So there are few painters, and then one painter is good at drawing the head, and then another painter is good at drawing the hands, legs, etc. So by gathering all these painters, then they will be able to draw a full painting of the king. So this is what it means by meditate on emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects.
但是目前讲的高巴也不执行的，喇叭也不执行的，几点你马上吧？呢？他要不手机你不知吧？呢？他要不这边他要不我懂得拉动我们就喇叭免就查，还是看看对点东西，是吧？我要不一知吧？呢？他要不我们就喇叭们就是某个强子参与嘛，是吧？点马上吧？呢？要不手机周的，但我们就拉动活动的东西，你恰当恰上去要不恰要嘛？也是我。
Yeah, so if only two painters are there, like for example, the painter who is good at drawing the hands and another one is good at drawing the legs, and the rest are absence, then if they were to paint the king, as in to draw a painting of the king, then that king will be the painting will be without the head, without the body, etc. Because they are not good at painting that, so it is not a complete painting.
다 빼듯이 다 된다를 가르쳐서 나서 수진님을 배 돈이나 빼샤 수진님을 그런 돈이나 빼샤 remoke 그거데 다시 주고는 반찬이 다시 줘요 어디서 반찬이 다 간다 된디 돈이 집어 공부이나 다 간다 다시 주도 지금하고 간다 수진님을 remoke 집어라 remoke 창상 만드는 고도다 라동다 그래서 차는 되는 것이 다 돈이 집어 공부이나 그 touch 마세요 진짜 그 창상 이다보시 차고요 말이에요 와 차고요 말이스 다 간다 고도 라도 소단라시 이제 된다 디샤워 오 돈이 수대 잡고 수대 공부니라 배샤 remoke 강가다 진소 다시 주는 봐 배샤 touch 차서 배샤 다 대창상 총바이나 다 돈이다 다시 주는 총바이나 다 비다보시 차고요 와 나니 다 remoke 창상 총바이나 다 돈이 수진이 목수대 이다고 야부시 줘야 차고요 대만사는 고도 라도 샤로 예세 다들 배샤워.
So the example here is, in order to draw a full painting of the king Su Jin Bo, then one needs to gather all the painters who are good at drawing a particular part of the body in order to draw a full painting, right? So similarly, use this example to illustrate the meaning is the king itself, the body of the king is meditation on emptiness, and in order to make in order to have a full practice. Complete practice, meditations on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects, then one needs to gather all the painters, so that the rest of the painters are the practice of the rest of the perfections. So that that represents a method aspect. So by having all the painters of the 6 perfections, then conjoining it with the meditations on emptiness, then one's practice will be a complete one. So since it is conjoined with the method aspect.
배된의 자고의 윤세 소의 하고가 제고래 나도 동반이 공부라 남기 초디지 돈이도 고래서 된다들이다. 돈이데 공부라 돈이데 배 타지 차고 맞아와. 타지 차 간다. 다신다 예수 파지 둘라서 냐네 그 소다 맞아와지 공부래 대답 자와 고스나 자부 수준의 고도다 라동 나시 내나시 빼될 샤네 다 대나시 차로 찬상하지 자고요 말에서 동반님 지고지 상황 대바이나
So in the meaning of this example and of the point that I'm trying to say is, when we meditate on emptiness, it is very important to conjoin the meditations on emptiness with the method aspect. So we should make our meditations on emptiness not separate from the method aspect. So meaning we need to conjoin our meditations on emptiness with the rest of the perfections, such as the perfections of generosity, the rest with the 6 perfections, such as the perfection of generosity. If our practice is separate from the rest of the perfections, then it will be like the painting of the king Su Jin Bo, that the painting is without head and without the rest of the limbs, for example.
당나서 배 돈이 공부에 난지 따바리 생활은 진짜니 지슈요 다 대나신 와서 빼지 마샤네와 나서 파시 주기 시장데 다 돈이 공부에 나서 돈반이 공부에 신세지기 쳐도 파 계좌도 따는데 되게 쳐도 배 디진 중요하다 중요하다 저한테 되게 쳐도 공부는 돈반이 공부요사 근데 돈이 공부는 공부이나 다 파시 신비 파시 하는 신도 그와
Yeah, and we always we always conjoin our class or attending class with the practice of 6 perfections, right? So use this as an example to illustrate the meaning of meditation on emptiness. So when we meditate on emptiness, then we think that whatever roots of virtue that I accumulate, I give it to all sentient beings for their happiness. and for eliminating their sufferings. So if we think in this way, then we conjoin our meditating on emptiness with the practice of with the generosity.
Oh, that is only go because the Lima Vinci about conditional in the Majua. Where Yabuji Bongo inside the Nishi go by now. The Sri is in the Roa Srinane. Srinane, the Lima Vinci near Papua to go near so. That only go because the Lima Vinci about the Maju telling me only with our Bongo inside the Nishi, some level in. Oh, dear, Sri Passion.
And when I meditate on emptiness, then I will make sure that I will abandon my physical and verbal negativities so that they do not manifest. So, because in order to conjoin our practice with with morality, then we have to abandon our physical and verbal negativities, right? So when we meditate on emptiness, then I will abandon my physical and verbal negativities so that they do not manifest.
That only go because of the his teacher to go so that the listen like Katsi to buy the to buy to be turning it on money turned it. Only is a Jim Machiba. Coming Katsi to Nang Tony Goma de Masha, Jim Machiba checking, set to buy checking is that you go by ina. Ah, Sipping Yanish, Sinagora, see pushing Yanish. Wow.
And again, when I meditate on emptiness, for the sake of other sentient beings, whatever physical or mental hardships occur, I will continue my meditations without break.
That only go by the Helsinki Chid Sunda, the Gawada Troitone, Roa, Helsinki, the Chid in Basunda, the Gawada Troitone, and that only go by ina, that's 20% in the world.
And in order to conjoin the meditations on emptiness with joyous effort, then we think, for the sake of other sentient beings, I happily engage in these meditations.
That only go by the go with the pair, going me back carrying a delapa sound of yeah, but say near to be tony. Then he know it the Nato the Manduati, only run up a sound of money, that which go to by now. That thing is something question in the world.
Similarly, when I meditate on emptiness, I will focus my mind on the designated object of observations or designated a determined object or the designated object. Sorry, yeah. I will focus my mind on the intended object and do not get controlled by distractions or by the coarse and subtle conceptual thoughts. So if we think in this way, and do accordingly, then we will be able to conjoin the meditation on emptiness with concentration.
That only go by the pure labor shiba, only go by no quasipa lepe, drotuba, pure labor shiba. That only mago by the name, quasipa do naya dromatuba, yan dependent quality, no the baji, and this is namiki, a shimitone, pure the name, the dish shimitone, only go by no, I hear the question on a single word.
And when I meditate on emptiness, I know the benefits of meditating on emptiness, which is one will be able to be liberated from samsara. And I also understand the faults of not doing so, the faults of not meditating on emptiness, which is one will not be able to be free from samsara.
Oh, that did some of the knowledge. That remember the society go to know something to reach Tigre. Tigre in a Toma, who know the rich, some of you down. That don't want you turn some down to go there. There's no chance in single race about that. The chance of Tambo Toma, only go back some of the rich down. Some of the rich down the Baina. That only go back she that look and got the word of Magina, can't that single race about. She's over knowledge single race about pushing to Shindagi. But Changang with the Chuba to Mara Sina was going to Marati. Suchi and the go to Marwa. Oh, the bit Thomas only go because some of the digital only go. What did the digital sound by this single ways that they will pay to my literature?
So some might have a doubt that whether I'm able to do so or not. So however, if we before at the beginning of meditating on emptiness, or before we engage in the meditations, we think in this way gradually, as I mentioned just now. So if we set motivations in this way, so our meditations on emptiness will be conjoined with the rest of the perfections. So even though when I meditate on emptiness, the other thoughts such as generosity, etc., so they do not manifest because we are still an ordinary beings. So when we meditate on emptiness, the rest of the other thoughts cannot arise. So however, by thinking in this way, when we set the motivations, then we will be able to conjoin our meditations on emptiness with the rest of the perfections.
Oh, dindichi. Da kanda dindi nangi chodi toni goyala. Da kanda limbo ge jesro yo mare se odanga so. Limbo ge jesro. Da jesro yo mare se. Saja leshi ki leshi na karson na kepa cheta thadu ja limbo ju bilang mando se ko. This saja leshi no so yare. Kepa cheta thadu ja kepa se wa de ka se thadu ja limbo ge langa de no mare sta ni no mare se ko. Wa 아마서 케바 미나 케비 제시한 로토바치 림보랑 만로지 뭐 다 가다와
이 가네
사절리히 사절리히스 뭐들 여다 간다 좋은지 사절리히스 그것도 발라준 거지.
Yeah, so it's very important to practice the meditations on the emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects, as mentioned in the questions of Ranachutta Sutra. So we should not become a foolish one, like what it says on the text. And from another text, Saja Lekshir, so some good explanations, excellent explanations on some place or some ground. I do not know exactly the name of the name of the text. So however, in Tibetan, it's called Saja Lekshir. So in this text, it says that no matter how the intelligent ones, the wise one, no matter how unskilled they are in means, they will never follow the path of the foolish people. So no matter how unskilled it means, those wise ones, no matter how unskilled it means they will never follow the path of the foolish people. So what it means is we should try our best to become the wise one and not the foolish people.
다 나중에서 다 파신 두고 나서 냐니 가리기나 파신 두고 냐니지 생각이 그래서는 단도 마모지 논주다 줄라마다 다 너무 마모 치고도 두야 된다. 봐. 아도 저 배우에서 요새도 돼 봐. 이 난지 다바 휴대야 되리로.
Yeah. So it's very important to conjoin our whatever virtuous practice with the six perfections, right? So this is supported by many scriptural quotations, such as supported by those mentioned, such as supported by Sublime Continuum and the sutras mentioned in the text.
limbo wangi mandwa da kanda sa jeba ina kanda nyedu pansare de ina nyedu pansare de ina kanda ro da pashin chuga la dong re ta de mandwa ro pashin chuga la kanda lo re se go.
So as it says, so do not become the foolish people, because even those on the eighth ground, those bodhisattvas, even though they have already abandoned afflictive obscurations, they still need to practice the rest of the 10 perfections.
Takanda Tony Gumba Chibo Tangi Jiu Marese, Roa, Tony Gumba Chibo Tangi Kanda Sanji Kumba Totu Marese, Ye Totu Nerana Sanji Kumba Tota Relora, it is a Tony Gumba dinner Daju Kumba Tobarwa. Tobarwa. Oh, it is Takanda di Mali.
Yeah, so even those bodhisattvas on the eighth ground, they still need to practice the 10 perfections, even though they have already abandoned afflictive obscurations. So, because of this, you and I, they did. Right. Yeah, and yeah, so as it says, in particular on the eighth ground, when the bodhisattvas has exhausted all mental afflictions and therefore abides in the ultimate with full elaboration specified, the Buddhas exhort him and say, Buddhahood cannot be achieved through these mere realizations of emptiness. This realization is achieved even by Sravakas and Pratika Buddhas. So the meaning of these passages is, if one meditate on emptiness alone, then that itself cannot enable one to achieve the state of enlightenment. So because the realizations of emptiness, even that is achieved by Sravakas and Pratika Buddhas, hearers or storyteller realizers.
那第二嘛，中国的上级是年纪国家一些的，新老师吧，城里吧，那个对些是吧？那个对些，你多了说呗，全了没去了没去，第一些就是第一些的，这刚才针对中国也是，上级是不把对的针对中国的，那甚至针对中国的，甚至没学你们当中就把有啥的你了怕就送落学针对上，很多呢，这社保嘛都啊继续是的，刚刚说你们当中有个说刚说被。红中你知道不的，毛不是呢？他刚才谁忙住吧？谁个工作吧？你还继续是的生活的话，我谁忙住也继续是任务，被申请当做被处理是任务，处理是对你来说呢，看到政治生活上，你那随便两类的嘛都以前不太熟的，我说话，我但谁把这个那刚这个工作上的就不我说呗，两类些了，我认着些，你生活多啊，他刚才对基本上就嘛也是这样的话，我们基本上些。
And the text says, look at my immeasurable bodies, wisdom, Buddha fears, and so forth. You do not have my powers and the like. So take this as a reason. You should set about it with joyous effort. You should continue to put effort in training. So think of the unpacified sentient beings agitated by various mental afflictions. So think about those sentient beings who are agitated by various mental dispositions. So they are different types of sentient beings, right? So, and then it says that do not give up patience either. So what it means is there are sentient beings who are agitated by various mental afflictions, and then they will come and then make you angry, etc., or disturb you. So especially at that point of time, then you need to practice patience. Do not give up patience. You need to practice patience, especially the patience that is in the nature of undisturbed mind. So when they harm you or makes you angry, then you should have the patience that is in the nature of undisturbed mind.
他刚才强调什么？不是结果，是怎么的？培训长嘛的嘛，这话就漏的这些的。但现在是说就漏过的，这个他切吧的是不？他刚才说吧，现在漏过是就呢，那我的漏过把他切吧，那些毛个吧的是不吧
？Yeah. So if the Buddhas explaining this to 8th ground bodhisattvas, the need to train in bodhisattva conduct, then don't mention this also applies even more so to others. So those 8th ground bodhisattvas, they need to practice, then the 10 perfections, then don't mention the rest also need to practice the 10 perfections.
那我嘛这里我写不到我那边就让天地告诉呗，按照我的他都用的吧。我那边让推美国，他都是修嘛对吧？这当我是拍戏直播了，我他很多那个咖喱那边，这当我了，看到阿爸说了七八有嘛的是不啊？七八有嘛，他被老炒完来，他七八有个的话，他就炒完来七八有个嘛。那阿爸说看到老鬼把的几把的是，那拍戏出来，我里那老鬼的，看到里那老鬼真的几把的老鬼把几把的是不啊？挺么的，看到老鬼把挺么的是看到。
So although there are indeed differences in the context of the high paths of unsurpassed mantra, and it was already explained above that both the mantrayana and paramittayana are the same. So they are same in training the 2 bodhicittas and also same in training in the 6 perfections as well. So paramittayana, there is the sutrayana and also tantrayana or mantrayana. So in terms of those course point, so course point of practice or the practice that is common to Tantrayana and the Sutrayana, so they need to practice as well. It's common to both yana, so those course points. And when it comes to the subtle points, then there is a little bit there is difference. So however, the course point is common to both Sutrayana and Tantrayana.
但我嘛，多把人家多把利用个，人吧 老说把那个把门对起噻，这样嘛是把上对吧？那对新疆的新制没些别，对明明就新把的差不多，如果是看到上了去嘛，到那对了，差不多的是那个是吧？上了对应到把新他妈了，差不多的也是吧？差不多很多嘞，人家那个主动上对吧？送家很多些的哩，那对等到的上达到的哩嘛，对吧？很多哩送的，对吧？我第二年差不多呢，顶对起这样嘛是吧？顶对起被嘛咪把顶对起拖的强松差不多呢，那我那么地方嘛就另外是吧？那对这嘛是吧
？So and the opponents they have a wrong understanding. So then they say we do not assert that generosity and so forth are unnecessary, but that they are complete in the mind with no thoughts. So they are complete in not thinking about anything. This is their assertions. So because non-apprehending generosity, so in other words, is non-referential generosity or non-objectification generosity is complete by non-adherence to the recipient, to the act of giving, and to the substance given. The remaining perfections are likewise complete in this way. So this is their wrong understanding regarding this sentence. So this is also because sutras say that the 6 perfections are contained in each one of them. So they have wrong understanding regarding this point, and then they have this wrong understanding.
很多的拍摄主人那的主动这种是吧的，那在拍摄主即便娘的接班的，主要的娘的接的，都是有的是的送的吧，的娘的接有的送的嘛的，这娘的接的，他们娘的接的不是你别这些个嘛的，他给娘的嘛现在拍摄主个差的不是你送的嘛的，你送了大家共同这个嘛，能够求的都你瞧要嘛的吧。
Yeah. So the meaning of these scriptural quotations that the 6 perfections are contained in each one of them. The actual meaning is when one practice a perfections, then you have to conjoin it with the 6 perfections. So it doesn't mean that when you practice one perfections and you do not think about the others, you do not conjoin it with the 6 perfections, and then that itself contain the 6 perfections. So if you do not think about it and you do not conjoin the 1 perfections that you are practicing with the 6 perfections, by itself it will not contain the rest of the other 6 perfections. So you have to conjoin your practice, whatever perfections that you are practicing right now, and then you have to conjoin it with the 6 perfections. Then only it will become the meditation on emptiness that possesses all supreme aspects.
那等这些唱的会呢，看到这样没事吧？等你拍戏就是唱的会呢，也看到没地界甚至现在的两百下那个不是说吧，因为的话，我的说比现在的两百下边干了，这拍戏现在做了可先把给要嘛的是吧？做了上路给要嘛的是，但没办法，那时候了拍戏主干两年就把它上路过来是吧？但基本上的故事是吧？那个给上路当嘛，给个两年唱的会呢？
Yeah, if all the perfections were complete simply through this, they would. So through this means they're not thinking about anything. So they would also be complete in the shamatha of the titikas. So shamatha is come abiding, and titikas is non-Buddhist. So single-pointed mind at the time of meditative equipoise, since there is no adherence to those 3 in that way. So if this were the case, according to those opponents saying, if not thinking about anything itself contains the 6 perfections, then those non-Buddhists, so when they are in the meditative equipoise on the come abiding itself, then since they do not have the rest of the hearing, they do not have other thoughts. For example, the adherence to those 3, then that itself will also become that itself will also become a practice conjoining with 6 perfections. However, this is not the correct way.
他对我们等于还在去写过的结果的是结果里送报的，但年上了呀，那么我们都比西安的点了200写的真的，上次结果完就是如些，的生活多。他刚才是结果了，看到一些是拍戏跟娘的结果的，被一些拍戏看个跟娘的结果吧，唱不起结果了吧，唱不起结果了。电脑是年上这种吧了，被多年都比些了，被娘的结果的 내 다시 현다 건강 양내 제발 상도 뉴스 그러더니 가 지야서는 엄마 그거이나 현다 다시 그 양내 제발 상도 뉴스 아니라도 저밖에 우리도 비실한 양내 제어디 현다 상도 와이나 그 장주기 시타지 장주기 생의 양내 제발 상도 장주기 생의 양내 제발 상와이나 내 현재 되는데 저 놓고도 저랑 지고 아니 시대 되는 상도도 까사라 요마라 아 너라도 저라고데 맞아 내 현재 코드 지에 되는 상도도 메시고라 장주기 생 요마라 오, 나 정말 찌는 거 있어 어디? 나 찌는 뭐 리고도 와.
In particular, as the 10 Ground Sutra says, Stravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas who have a non-conceptual wisdom of reality would become Mahayanists during meditative equipoise because the entire bodhisattva conduct would be complete. So one is talking about not thinking about anything itself contains the perfections, right? Contains the 6 perfections. And here he talks about, and those who have Stravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas who have non-conceptual wisdom. So, and even though you have achieved non-conceptual wisdom, you still need to practice the rest of the perfections. Otherwise, if you say that achieving non-conceptual wisdom itself contains the rest of the perfections, then the Stravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, they would have become Mahayanists already, because when they are in meditative equipoise, then that itself will contain the other perfections, will contain the entire bodhisattva conduct. So they will itself will contain the other perfections. So, however, this is not true. If this were true, then that means Stravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas would have abandoned their mind striving for their own welfare. They would have already abandoned the mind striving for their own welfare by the mind striving for the welfare of others. So there are many faults will follow. For example, such fault will follow.
But the Jilianja Reno to do the Sunday, the Anti Choban, they were in the of water by Jewish, but that the way of us with the Kona channel, that you know, but they can't Doganata, Reno to do raise this one, the Yanich and Yanich, do you use this one? This one, the Taka, the Chicken Yanich and the Pashaman did the rest, they in the Czech Maris and did the rest, this on the Levina. Went up the pie, Joa, Chuchi to the Jimba, the Chipo Chichen and Dugu, the Shendaka, did the Ross. Yes, Alina, then do you raise that? The liver war, it's one of the liver, do Maris, Takanda.
And if you assert that this alone is sufficient because it is taught that all 6 are included in each perfection, then it would also be appropriate just to offer a mandala with the verse giving cow dung together with water, since it is said that all 6 are present in it. So again, here talks about the faults if what the opponent think were correct. So if this were so, if you only engage in one practice and not thinking about and not do not conjoin it with the other perfections, then offering mandala itself would have enough. Would be sufficient, because as you say, practice one, it contains the rest, it contains the other. Then I just do mandala offering itself is okay already, because it already contains the rest, right? However, this is not so. So in fact, it is like asking oneself, would mandala offering itself contain the rest or not? If you do not think of if you do not conjoin it with other perfections, would mandala offering itself sufficient? And the answer is no.
That you see the song on the Dina, Taisi, which about the touches in the sheriff's the Pesha Leunda, that one can say Mamuji Takanda, Shutsa, Takanda, and that Tashi Yamado, going to that and that Dodo, Taki Yamado. Taisi, which about the touches in the sheriff, Pena, put the Bashin, Yangi, night, Mati, Hida Molas of Jubicina, that Logi and Tinangi shooting Maton, no touching Yangi, no Maridina, Maiba Nashin was that, Nangi, Maiba Hindose. That on that, Jinanzo, the lower, that on that Amate, that's what the Hatching situation you believe on town with it. That till a Nani shooting was Yorwa. Nani shooting was your Takin, that kitchen carche by the kitchen, or the Pogo, later table, the later table, no Nani the shooting with the Henda, never Chayomara. Look, 파츠코네 파렌지에 정말 열어와 열대 오늘 주투마도 디케지 신거와 오늘 좀 마도나 간다 로티기 마심바 고 말해서 간다 간다대로와 오 냥이 집에 하장 동이 잡고 열대 이나 다 간다 로와 로 단체 매번 차요 말해서 와 어디 냥이 집로 차요 말 간간 냥이 집로 말해서 와라 간다 링크가 돼 말와.
So the following analogy is given in order to illustrate conduct conjoined with the view and wisdom conjoined with method. So conduct conjoined with the view and wisdom conjoined with method means that one needs to practice the indivisibility of method and wisdom. So you need to combine these two and practice together. So the example is when a mother tormented by sorrow at the death of a beloved child engages in conversations with other people and the like, no matter what mental states arise, she doesn't give up her sorrow because it is so powerful, even though not all her mental states are those of sorrow. So, yeah, so like the mother, who has lost her beloved child. So I said the mother is in great sorrow, right? So even though she is in great sorrow, so however, there is a difference whether that sorrow thought has a manifest or not. So like for example, she's in sorrow, and when other people ask her questions, or talk to her, so though and she has other thoughts, those thoughts are not the sorrowful thoughts. However, it is those other thoughts also has the power of sorrow in it. So even though not all thoughts are the thoughts of sorrow, however, other thoughts has the sorrow feeling in it, has a sorrow in it. Therefore, there is a difference while you're having the sorrow, but it's not manifest.
다 간다 다른 돈이도 비셔로 슈터나 짐바 동안에 샤다 고아라서 바시비 대달라 미비도 쓰다 돈이도 별로 말이 되나 이 슈터 되마 뭔가 돈이도 별로 때 슈쳐보 가지고서 여바이나야 괜히 로 신다 뭔가 돈이도 별로 말이 되나 돈이 마이나 차다 고아서 지기 때리 로 대라 미비 로데 매바 차야 마들로 따다 신디에레스 로아 또디 신디 돈이도 별로 되게 신디에레스 신디어스가 간다게 어여 말해서 거와
So similarly, if the wisdom realizing emptiness is very powerful, then even though the mental states that observe your generosity, prostrations, circumambulations, and so forth do not realize emptiness, this doesn't contradict the fact that they operate with the power of that wisdom. So meaning, if one has wisdom realizing emptiness, very strong wisdom realizing emptiness, so when you practice generosity, do prostrations, and do circumambulations, and those mental states that observe those activities are not wisdom realizing emptiness. However, when you engage in those activities, since the wisdom realizing emptiness is very strong, then those activities are conjoined with the power of that wisdom. So,
대가 나신 긴고 더블업에 장주 세대 슈 잡고 지소서 다 나진 가도 정말 꾸노도 배 맞추고 그래서 되다 배 조항이 뉴스 간기는 토마 꾸노도 배 야부지 장주 신지 심바지 그래서 와 장주 신지 심바지 요바이나 대 토마 꾸노도 장주 신지 심바도네 때 돈이 고바이나 대 돈이 고바 대스나 돈이 고바 대스 로데 돈이 또 로데 우에서 줘대요 와 로 대구에도 주나 장주 신지 심바의 제거를 지금 말 장주 세대 신대요 그래서 와 장주 세대 신대요 그래서 다시 야마다로 차대였습니다. 와 탑 장주 신지 신대 돈이 본대요 그래서 뭐 장주 신지 자요 말했어 심바의 자요 말했어 와 뭐 된디지 그래서 간다 나도 다시 마다와 제스나 너 니가도 배 장주 세도 오에도 줄게 돈이 또 배셔도 오에도 지 준데게 된디 가서 신지라 된디 무식이 말했어 요 말했어 와 돈이도 별로 저는觉得나 그 장주 세대 것도 줘야 갈래 가버려. 때 갈래 가고. 예. 맞아. 장수 써 줘봐 있는 제가 요 말했어. 예. 와.
Yeah, so if you start off with the intense power of bodhicitta as you do at the beginning of a meditation session, although bodhicitta is not manifest during the concentration of emptiness, that doesn't mean that it is not influenced by it. The way in which wisdom and method are not separate is also like that. So as we always do, it's very important to set a right motivations, good motivations at the beginning of a session. For example, when we are attending class or when we do our virtuous practice, it's very important to set a good motivations by generating bodhicitta. So, in particular, when we do meditations on emptiness, then it's also very important to conjoin the meditations on emptiness with bodhicitta. So when we for the sake of all other sentient beings, then I meditate on emptiness. So if you have this, if you have your meditation on emptiness conjoined with bodhicitta motivations, so when you are doing meditations on emptiness, so your wisdom is manifesting, right? So while your wisdom is manifesting, the bodhicitta cannot manifest. So because when we are still ordinary beings, so when wisdom manifesting, then bodhicitta cannot manifest at the same time. So however, if you ask the questions, so when they are not manifest, when bodhicitta is not manifesting, does it mean that such meditation on emptiness has already separated from the bodhicitta? The answer is no. Why? Because it is conjoined with it. It is conjoined with it, and is influenced by it. So that is what it means by indivisible method and wisdom. So when we are still an ordinary beings, these indivisible the method and wisdom are being indivisible means that when to set the bodhicitta motivations and then to influence or to conjoin such bodhicitta with the meditation of emptiness. Because even those on the 10th ground, bodhisattvas on the 10th ground, they cannot have they cannot have their two minds, bodhicitta and wisdom, manifest at the same time. Even bodhisattva on the 10th ground, they are unable to do so. So for an ordinary beings, then when we practice the indivisibility of method and wisdom, then we conjoin it instead. We conjoin we conjoin one with the other. Yeah, so those bodhisattvas on the 10th ground, so they are they are in the meditative equipoise on emptiness, right? So when they are on the 10th ground, their emptiness, their wisdom realizing emptiness is so much different from other people, right? So their mind their mind meditate on emptiness is like putting a drop of water into water. So their mind is so much focused on the wisdom realizing emptiness. And when they are on that state, when they are in the meditative equipoise on emptiness, their bodhicitta, at that time, their bodhicitta do not manifest. So, however, it is conjoined with it, or it is influenced by it, the bodhicitta.
탑지 심바다 셔럽지 심바 다시 야마다와 맞아 간다 동반이 되고 말이야 도마 자주 생기 생들에 선호하고 싶은데 희생적이 쳐도 간다 동반이 되나 지상 땅바지 다 심바지 동반이나 희생적이 쳐도 되게 심바 동안에 선호시 땅바 도마 자주 심바지 다 세바지 동반이나 희생적이 쳐도 되게 세바 동바지 왔다 들리지 선호 도마지 내바이나 내간다 수비 냐네 심바다 인비 냐네 자주 생 냐네 심바 그래서 참아 이거야 와 이거 당연히 주주받아 신세와는 인지 미정에도 주주받고 말해서 그런다. 와.
Yeah. So as it says here, to conjoin to practice the conduct conjoined with the view and to practice wisdom conjoined with the method. So, for example, when we meditate on emptiness, then before we start the meditations, then it's very important to generate bodhicitta, so that I do these meditations for the sake of all other sentient beings. So similarly, when we practice generosity, and it's also very important to do it for the sake of other sentient beings. Same applies to when you are practicing morality and patience as well. You do it for the sake of other sentient beings. So in this way, you conjoin your practice with the bodhicitta. So even though also when we say conjoin, it doesn't mean that it must necessarily manifest. So it doesn't mean that it must necessarily manifest. So meaning, conjoin doesn't mean that it must manifest. So do not be misled by the statement that, for example, the body, wealth, and long life you enjoy in secular existence are results of the accumulations of merit. When method is divorced or separated from wisdom, this is indeed the case. However, if they are conjoined, merit is altogether suitable to be the cause of liberations and omniscience. There are infinite scriptural passages for this, like the one in Nagarjuna Precious Garland. It says that, in brief, Your Highness, the form body of a Buddha is born from the accumulations of merit. So through the accumulations of merit or merit of merit, then the result of that is one will achieve the form body. And through the accumulations of wisdom, through the collections of wisdom, in other words, is merit of wisdom. One is merit of merit, another one is merit of wisdom. So the second one, the collections of wisdom, is the merit of wisdom. So through the collections of wisdom, the result of that is one will achieve the truth body.
Oh, that is that you want my digital body deal with what Renga Chen and Lulu Generally, and you move Tanji, Sanji Jo, Jenny Gures, Labus, Mala. Renga the Penguin to Junji, Shimba, the city of the Diwana, Hui Jun, Chanju Jumanju, Lomudu, so the senior the Shen, someone Yabutoni, the Kanda, Magurese, did walk at the Dita Tobat, and to Spa, Tobacco, the Tobanix. What?
So again, this is the thought of those opponents. So they think that faulty conduct and all the mental afflictions that become the causes of the lower rebirth can also become causes of Buddhahood. So faulty conduct and all the mental afflictions, they are the causes of lower rebirths, right? So, however, there are some people, they have such doubt that these can be the causes of Buddhahood. And sometimes you seem to say that the virtues of generosity, ethics, and so forth, then another group of people, they have another doubt, saying that virtues of generosity, ethics, and so forth that lead to higher states are causes of secular existence rather than causes of enlightenment. So you should think about it properly before you talk. So you should settle your mind before talking. So this is not the case. 당진的
我一说点把主办子那个，一说点把主办子那个，就是来的是有点来是那的行了。
So do not misconstrue these statements from the sutras. Adherence to the six, generosity, and so forth is the actions of Mara. So the actual meaning of this quotation, adherence to the six, generosity, and so forth is the actions of Mara, means that apprehending six perfections such as generosity as truly existence, as inherent existence, as exists from his own side, is the actions of Mara. So the meaning of these quotations is apprehending six perfections such as generosity as inherent existence, truly existence, as exists from his own side. Then this is the actions of Mara.
힘이 돈에 대신바 동안다 지지 소아 지지 초지라 소바들이 지지 소아 시바이다 둘라 간다 샤바 제거를 다 간다 집다와기 말해시고와 너네 덴바 힘이 돈이 와 덴바 힘이 돈이 심바 동안 덴바 힘이 돈이 지지 지지다 지지 총지 와 지지 총지 지지 소아 저 간다가 다 대단한 샤바 제거를 말도 뒤에 의원에서 숨기다 좀 자고요 와 맞지 심바 동바이나 덴바 메비 돈이 심바 동 덴바 마힘이 돈이 심바 동 와 들으시 딱 거와 다 심바 동야가 배 찾아면 가서 덴바 두 가지 심바 동 요한다 근데 배 는데지 거는 딱 간다 와 랑히 주비 취지 배 랑히 주비 세지 심바 동에서 막 이마이나 다들 뭐는 이제 랑히 주비 세지 심바 동야 거로 요 맞다 간다 그러시나 와 대신에 와 랑히 주비 심바 땅에 세지 자원이 요 맞다.
And the Three Hips Sutra also explains making offerings while falling into objectification, guarding one's ethic while considering ethics to be supreme, and so forth should be confessed individually. So again, do not misconstrue the meaning of these statements. So making offerings while falling into objectification. So the meaning of falling into objectification is clinging to the true existence. Clinging to the true existence or adhering to the true existence. So if we make offerings while clinging to the true existence, then guarding one's ethic while considering ethics to be supreme and so forth should be confessed individually. Why it needs to be confessed? Because you make offerings clinging to the true existence, clinging to the inherent existence, clinging to the existence that it exists from the fact that clinging to that, thinking that it exists from his own side. So if you make offerings thinking in this way, clinging in this way, then they need to be confessed individually, since it is not how it's supposed not how it's supposed to be. So so how do we make offerings? So when we make offerings, we do not make offerings thinking that the objects of offerings or the offerings itself is truly existence, is inherent existence. So in fact, there is no such thing. There is no things exist inherently, right? So if you say that making offerings, thinking the offering itself is truly existence, so in fact, such actions of making offerings offerings do not exist. Such offerings do not even exist. So don't mention making such offerings.
做比成就恐怕他比较比差的也是个，为了出去也嘛也是。
So again, the questions of Brahma Sutra says conduct in all its varieties is conceptual. So the meaning of this sentence, conduct in all its varieties is conceptual, means that those conduct are imputed by conceptual thoughts. Conduct are imputed by conceptual thoughts. They are merely imputed by conceptual thoughts. They do not exist from its own side. Do not exist inherently. They do not exist intrinsically. So this is what it means by conduct in all its varieties is conceptual. And through non-conceptuality is enlightenment. So this non-conceptuality, thorough non-conceptuality, it refers to wisdom realizing emptiness. So wisdom realizing emptiness is the cause or is the method to achieve the complete enlightenment.
다도 취지 다도 도바다 간자기 다도 좀 짐바 되게 배 신비 돈으로 대다들어와 이 신비 돈에 간다 시소나는 마다비 뒤지래서 이 지금 된다도 시사와 이들이 간다 다니스 신지로 되는 다니스 신지로 신비 꾸는 한비스 단지니 꾸는 한비 그 된디게 배 시소라서 받다 힘바네 때 마다비 뒤지래서 예수도 뒤지래 때 때 말해서 예수 뒤지래 때 말해서 와 어디를 다 된다들이죠.
So the meaning of the first here referred to this one. So from this sutra, adherence to six generosity and so forth is the actions of Mara. So the meaning of the first is that generosity and so on, motivated by erroneous thinking in terms of the two selves, is explained as an actions of Mara because it is impure. So same as what I mentioned. So if one is motivated by self-grasping of person and self-grasping of phenomena, then generosity motivated by two types of self-grasping is explained to be the actions of Mara. So however, generosity and so forth are not presented as the actions of Maras. So generosity itself is not the actions of Mara. So however, the generosity motivated by self-grasping is explained to be the actions of Mara.
다 고리 담마 간다 렌디스 참마 kinda 개첨벌의 신지로도 보내 제쇼 당제 간다다 취지 단지도 신이 제마 세계선들에 대체받아 간다 단지고 말해서와 간다 지신바 동안도 디디게 말해서 다 다니신 제마 힘이 토네 와 엔디토는 때 간다 신발라서 받들이 제바 간다 간다 디디게 에스피스와 다도 제바 신시바 제고리에서 지금 어디 신바 파시나서 받도 가르치 냐리 제바는 도 디디게 말와.
Yeah, therefore, it follows that it was not taught. In the third stages of meditations, it becomes a very crucial point for Kamalashila to give this kind of answer. For if you misunderstand this, you will apprehend signs of a self of persons or a self of phenomena, and assert the entire side of conduct to be qualified by science. So, this paragraph talks about we must differentiate generosity and generosity motivated by self-grasping of person and self-grasping of phenomena. In other words, is apprehending the signs of two selves, apprehending the signs of person and apprehending the signs of phenomena. So generosity itself is not an action of Mara. However, generosity motivated by self-graspings or motivated by apprehensions of signs of two selves, then that will become the actions of Mara. So we must know how to differentiate.
我拿去倒把的情况，就学生把去的给全部用学过来是肯定的去学那个的话，真是的错了，好嘛嘞，去学那个的，我到时候给全部用，他这里讲说龙看看越的嘞，越的嘞，哇，
Yeah. So, yeah. So the main point that I explained today is conduct conjoined with the view and method conjoined with the method. So this is the main point that we talked about today. So we must practice method and wisdom inseparable. So we must conjoin them together and practice. So, and at the beginning of the class, of every class, and we talk about it's very important to conjoin our practice with 6 perfections, right? So this is the scriptural quotations to support the point.
他这个我真正的嘛，这的动那个东西，多的可都节目的了，可都没车意思吧？那这里得想意思吧？的动我是的参考想意思吧？
Yeah. So next class I will talk about if the mind of giving that things, I will give away this substance. So did you already? So if you have any questions, then you can ask now. VPCM 的 dinner 有的话，
我的可是我的主要你类似还是经济时代，那你继续讲的是吧？
经济时代急了，先应不急了嘛嘞？
先你不急了
啊，对嘛？
对嘛是吧？那等你得想了的，那等你得想为什么？
工作几万元啊？
那是得，
工作，哪里了？
也是得想了是吧？
That's all, yeah. So stop here today. You still have some work to do.
Honorable Chewing has a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Geshe-la, are you in a hurry?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to ask question.
Yeah. Earlier on, when you mentioned when meditate on emptiness, I want to know how can one be involved in verbal or negative action? So you mean when you meditate on emptiness, don't allow the mind to be disturbed? Because I don't understand what, maybe you can clarify. How can one be involved in verbal or negative action while we are meditating on emptiness?
So ini kasih tongi kombe kabla, tapi yang tu yang sebab dia kombo roh aja lah, sebab komnya dia yang tu dia kasih lu kasih shooting yang sungguh res, ini shooting sungguh dia yang tu dia lu ngagi ni je dia mentu makiwa dia kombo roh aja lah, ini yang tu dia tongi di kombe kabla, yang tu dia lu ngagi ni je dia cetu res, kandi cetu res, yang tu dia lu ngah kasih tongi kombe kapsu, kombe kapla, ini yang tu di lunga gi nyeju kandi cetu es.
Tapi siapa ina? Cara Tony Gong sibi kane, ngazu, selagi misi ndam rale se dia orang kita, sila situ bola ya. Si majing baca pada, ta, senda jiki pe, di sini kita ijazah langsung ko, juga nyeju cina ko nanti dia pada shuba langsung ada. Ta katu berapa pesana? Oh, tinggi mana malu aja gue urus kantor wah. Tinggi sih pe, susu ke sama deh. Oh, dah tinggi sih, Tony sama tang jibu kan ni lima gini cing ya, mana cendera bayi nanti, sedih nyane sih sih tu kamu dulu sah susu ngoseh lagi. Cuma bayi nanti, dia tak ada kat tu gue rasa, sedih soal, semua lima gini cing pun nanti.
Yeah. So, for example, when you're doing meditations on emptiness, so if someone if you suddenly remember a friend, remember an enemy, for example, a person that you don't like, then verbally you say harsh words, for example, or even when you are doing meditations, suddenly a person makes some noise that disturb you, then you show black face to the person. So so these are physical and verbal negativities. So it's very important to remind oneself that when I do meditations, and it's very important to conjoin with morality. That is, how to say that I have to make sure those physical and verbal negativities do not manifest.
被下班了，我是等到人家操心不干了，人家操心不干了，我是拍起这个娘的，心把结果来是老实的，但人家操心不干了，那么有人就到部位呢，所以呢，或者给解释呢，让啥动物那就点的，谁做不老外呢？的这个嘛的是的，这个是新闻都，让啥我是被指定的，娘的就拍起新闻过来搞过的，这谁比娘的就新闻过来搞过强了对吧？让啥被动物那不点的，我个人去人家错误都是呢，肯定老些个，那么那么点嘛，青年把老外呢，这大大是都要嘛，是吧？
So another example is like when we are attending class or receiving teachings, then suddenly our family members or for example our kids then suddenly make noise, shouting and etc. Then we show blackface to our kids, for example, or even scold them using harsh words, for example. So if this happens, then we have to check ourselves, our practice of our virtuous practice of attending class. What is not conjoined with what kinds of practice. So, in other words, then it will be very difficult to say our virtuous practice of attending class is conjoined with the practice of morality and patience. Because while we are beating our kids and saying that I'm attending class, and then you beat the kids, then our virtuous practice of attending class is not conjoined with the practice of morality and also patience.
那就是老师呢，说哈个吧姐，在空气老师那个那么的不过的事呢，就老有收入啊。人家老板呢，业务小头了把帮头吧就嘛多，你说变成这些，说是不干这些不干的，那就点了这个嘛是吧？也说个当然自己就发现伢的嘛是把差不多人家都随便伢的嘛是差不多人家，所以我先把就那这搞头的是吧？Yeah,
so in case if this happens when you are attending a class, then it's very important to remind ourselves and to remind yourselves and also to notice that if they make some noise and if I were to give black face or scold them back or beat the kids, etc., then my virtuous practice of attending class will not be conjoined with the practice of with the morality and patience already. So it's very important to recognize that if I were to do so, then it will, this is what happened. So it's very important to recognize that without noticing it, then it's very, very difficult to conjoin such practice with the virtuous practice.
저거 배 출 장한 지어가 군도 장한 지어서 라야 들었다 내가 그랬어. 단다 군도 장한 지어가 세바 장한 지었으니 네 들어갔다 와 내가 그랬어. 때를 지시는 군도 사는 거라야 이제.
Yeah. So if you have some family members who are quite good in teasing you, then if you were to show angry face or you would show black face to the family members, and that family members would ask you, so what are you learning? Are you learning patience or are you learning anger? So then if you heard that, then you will even get more angry, right?
Oh, this is tang also meditation to the more sheba chewere. Nyale karajina, this is more shebanina, this is a kaya cheba yore. Motion machine te ram khatun roja ko de ka tu yo mo sheba ina te de ka mo sheba ka tu ya de ka se pyo da ni mi de shin go ba wo de she wo de ka tu go de ka ke sa lo me ba ina de ka tu yo ma.
That's why it's very important to recognize the nature, to know the nature of those practices, such as the nature of patience, for example, and also to know the benefits of practicing that and the faults of not doing so. So by knowing all this, then we will be able to only then we will be able to stop those negativities from stop those negativities without noticing or without recognizing, knowing those benefits of doing so, the thoughts of not doing so, then it's very difficult for us to stop those negativities.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you.
I want to be so the chicken budget and what you on such a much in the children in the change of such a one as you were going to put in the Japan show in the I was on a country how about the Lama Sovereign Butch. Timber and do it in the pussy in the Japan show in the Japan. That and then only the amount of the Nianas of the Pidapa, you the other. Mount to the Nianas of the day changes, sit and they and set what 2 minutes of the Tibat on the Sanji with the together. The day is Tawa Jinjo, but you are leading cheaper. 간다 계산고서는 안에 측이도 지지원 들이지 밖에서 뭐 지단 예반여다 야 간다도 정말 간다 멤버들 메셔바래 벤죽들 로바지니 코란도 상업에 세리님이 예지 필수서가 용하다 이 로바지 게이자와데 산지 공부가 이해도 돼야 돼 이게 계산을 반주와 쇼스 본장이 있더라 시대요 주와시 내발아서 많이 시대요 모두다 무지라서 많이 시대요 어디 밖에서 있어
We conclude with dedication. We dedicate the roots of virtue accumulated, especially through these Dhamma discussions, may be the complete cause for the Dhamma to spread to all 10 directions and for all sentient beings to have excellent happiness. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to all upholders of Buddha's teachings, represented by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May them live eons long, good health, and may their enlightened activities and holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to our beloved teacher, Geshe Lama Sopa Rinpoche, who is especially kind to us. May Rinpoche's live eons long, good health, and may his enlightened activities and holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to world peace, and may excellent happiness prevail the world. May the world be free from pandemic, wars, conflict, disaster, famine, etc. And we dedicate these roots of virtue to those who pass away and those who suffer because of these pandemic, wars, conflict, disaster. May their sufferings be pacified immediately and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment. And we also dedicate these roots of virtue to those who help others, for example, those who help others financially. So may they have good health, long life, and may their life be filled with excellent happiness, and may their whatever virtue they do, may become the complete cause for their enlightenment. Sabege wa de tendang wa kula kampen dang keba jizu lo san daba yi tembe nimbo rindo se xie shuo janju sen jo rinpo jie ma ge pa na ki kyu ji yamba me ba yang kone kondo pe wa shuo jambi ma ge pa na ki kyu ji yamba me ba yang kone kondo pe wa shuo rimi tawa rinpo jie ma ge pa na ki kyu ji ke ba yamba me ba kone kondo pe wa shuo就将军将会给为的金用被为故事罗某在就是不为那边就做吧，结果多下的说将一结束多就别让其实是感觉的女人将那边莫等真个做拉说话的说，第二个多说今天看的别的把对吧，看的就为上面旅行我看的出门等真个做拉说话的说对些人多说，看的让为各位心看的别让的话马路中为的接是往等真个做一下别世界把都等有规矩。